Just time for a quick business lesson today, folks. Now, whether you're someone who frequently buys microtransactions in games, buys them only sometimes, or maybe just every once in a while, it's important that you understand that every time you do, you are helping create more. You're telling the companies that put them in your games that you like it and that they should do it more. Multiply that times a couple million people all thinking just like you, and now you have what's called a market, meaning a large enough group of people to support a certain type of business. That business, in this case, being microtransactions. See, aside from their effects in game, the amount of money they make or the amount of money they don't, this is the most important consequence of engaging with them. You know how people like me always try to tell you how making apologies for excessive microtransactions, even if you don't find them intrusive, is a bad idea, and buying them, even if it's only cosmetic, is even worse? Well, this is why. Doing so helps to normalize them and thus ensures that they only continue to get worse. Corpos do not self-regulate, guys. No magic higher authority is going to step in on a customer's behalf and say, "Whoa there, Activision, how about you cool with those microtransactions for a second? You're about to ruin your video game." On the contrary, Activision and companies like them will gladly ruin a game themselves, even if it's enjoyed by millions of customers, if they have any reason whatsoever to believe that doing so might make them a little more money. Just look around. They've done it already numerous times. They'd remove the graphics from a game just to sell them back to you if they knew customers would tolerate it. All that's stopping them currently is that right now their analytics say that we won't. I mean, shit, in many cases they've already done that too. 30 FPS locked games on PS5, anybody? And that's why now it's even more important than ever to not engage with microtransactions in any way if you do not like them, even if they're only cosmetic. That's why you'll notice more and more seemingly innocuous, low-priced microtransactions showing up across many in-game stores. For many larger corpos, especially AAA corpos, most of those relatively minor, inexpensive, or maybe cosmetic microtransactions, they're not there for making money. They never were. They're there to help the company create hyper-accurate prediction models for adoption rate, as well as gauge an audience's overall tolerance level for those type of purchases. It's actually similar to how YouTube doesn't really care whether you clicked like or dislike, only if you clicked or didn't, yes or no. For example, when you buy a cosmetic item from an in-game store, the dev is not primarily interested in what you bought or why, or maybe even how much money it's making. It's simply marking a yes or no. Did this customer engage with the storefront, or did they not? And the more yeses a game's monetization vectors rack up, the more egregious the microtransactions there inevitably become. And that's because by engaging, even a little bit, even just once, you are telling the company, yeah, if you sell things here, someone will buy them. I will tolerate it. Microtransactions and exploitative monetization in modern games are only as egregious and bad as they are because customers made it clear that the majority of them would tolerate it. If no one ever bought Bethesda's horse armor or Ubisoft's XP boosters and all that similar stuff, we wouldn't be seeing them now because after failing to sell, the market would have been designated as non-viable and they would have moved on to something else. Companies don't waste time and resources attempting to sell a product to people that they know won't buy it. Instead, they rely on market forces and engagement analytics to determine what and how much people will buy and then sell that to them. So if you're wondering, why are they constantly trying to sell this garbage to us? The answer is because we're asking them to. Corpos aren't magic. They can't force people to buy things that they don't want. If we're seeing things like an increase in cosmetic or cosmetic adjacent microtransactions, it's because they think they can sell them. It's really that simple. The reality is that there is no such thing as a microtransaction that's only cosmetic, since every purchase of one will still increase the overall amount of microtransactions and how ubiquitous they are. They still have an effect on the normalization of them, even if gameplay-wise it doesn't do anything. You may have thought you were just buying a cool shirt for your character, but you were also sending a message to the developer loud and clear, which said, "This was great, more please." In fact, it's impossible to engage with any microtransactions, no matter how slight, how minor, or how deceptively benign they may appear to be, without also telling the developer loud and clear, "This was great, more please." And finally, this is why now we're seeing blatantly pay-to-win stuff in games like Activision's Call of Duty Warzone. They've normalized monetizing cosmetics completely at this point. Enough people bought them, continue to buy them, and defend doing so. They won. They're so normalized that you're going to see comments below even this video on a channel as small as mine defending this stuff and telling me that I'm wrong for thinking that devs exploiting their customers is a bad thing. And I'm not telling you need to stop buying this stuff or that you're a bad person for buying horse armor or whatever. I'm simply explaining why we are where we are. This is what the long-term effects of engaging with microtransactions, even cosmetic-only microtransactions, Please do. You're not buying them in a vacuum. What you and everyone else do in game stores affects everyone else who also bought that game, and the industry as a whole, incidentally. Remember that all the things you're spending money to get in most microtransactions used to just be part of the game. That is, until enough people decide to let developers know that they'd pay actual money for that stuff if they just paywalled it, which of course they then immediately did. This is what the end of the It's Just Cosmetics road looks like. Take a look around. Is this great? Do y'all like this? Are we pleased with this? Once people let them know that they'd pay money for things in games after already buying the game itself, that was it. It was over. Because once they knew you'd buy something, even if it's just horse armor, they knew they could get you to buy anything. And once even one part of a game was behind an additional paywall, no matter what it was, no matter how small or insignificant it was only a matter of time until they stuffed everything they possibly could behind that paywall as well. I mean, fuck, they work so well in phones and in video games, now they're trying to put them in cars. Air conditioning, bro? That'll be $20 a month in the in-car store, bitch. What about your seat going back a little farther, perhaps? Oh, that's 15. If you're wondering where it stops, that's the fun part. It doesn't, not until you run out of money.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Yup, woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up,